heard stories of emergencies. They occur on planes quite often. You may have even heard about the family of a 25-year-old newlywed nurse. That family sued American Airlines for wrongful death after she collapsed on a plane traveling from Hawaii to Dallas. She ultimately died due to a pulmonary embolism. And there are really two issues here that we wanted to discuss. The first, Sarah, I'd love for you to weigh in on, and that really is the responsibility of an airline, when to divert, what resources are necessary mid-flight, because as physicians, we're all very sensitive to this. Anything that happens on an airplane, you can guarantee yourself you're not going to get the same medical treatment as you're going to get in a hospital, no matter who's on board that flight.
Expect to.
So I'm curious, and I think part of this case and others that are out there, are when is the airline, what is their responsibility for diverting a flight, and what case does a family like this have?
Okay, so the first part to your question, the airline has a duty to keep its passengers safe. And that includes when there's a medical condition, an emergency condition of a passenger. So the airline has a duty to divert the plane so long as it is safe to do so. In the example that you brought up with the family and this tragic story of the 25-year-old who died, this was outrageous to me, because the pilot, the captain, was made aware by another passenger who was a doctor that this is an emergency, that she's unconscious, that they need to make an emergency landing. They were an hour and a half away from their destination in Texas. And however, they were hovering and flying over Albuquerque, New Mexico, and this woman was still alive when she arrived. But, you know, the argument is that, you know, this is a type of condition that if it's treated timely enough, that a death and a fatality could be prevented possibly.
Well, and then let's talk about another issue here, and this is the very difficult part about medicine and stepping away from the legal. You know, I will say this sadly, they could have potentially landed that plane within 10 minutes. And with a massive pulmonary embolism in the medical world, I can tell you, Sarah, that I have had people have a massive pulmonary embolism right before my very eyes, and they don't survive it. And it's an incredibly difficult thing, particularly when you're up in the air and there are no resources. And the toughest part in this, and we wanted to touch upon it, because pulmonary embolisms, there is a higher risk when you're flying on these long flights, these deep vein thrombosis that develop. If they break off and they travel to your lung and that clot is big enough, it can kill you very quickly. And it's, no matter what, in some of these situations, there's not a lot you can do other than try preventative measures. And that, the hard part in a situation like this is most emergencies that occur on an airplane can be stabilized enough. And you said it, Sarah, the pilot probably thinking, well, this happens all the time. They're a little faint, they're a little dizzy. In this case, I have no doubt this airline should have been diverted. They should have landed. Humbly and sadly, I think based upon what I've read, there's still a very high likelihood that she would not have survived this. And that's why it's so difficult, because pulmonary embolisms, people hear them, they think, oh, these are easily treatable, and in many cases, they're not.
I totally understand what you're saying, Travis. Sometimes you can be at a hospital and do every single thing right, and unfortunately, sometimes people will still pass away, especially in situations like this. But for the family, it will always be, what if? What if they had landed that plane and we could still have our family member, and now they will never know?
Well, I think as tragic, and I completely agree with you, I think it's that uncertainty, because nobody knows. But I think as tragic as this case is, one thing that it does highlight is actually how risky flights are and how often emergencies do arise like this. And we do see deep venous thromboses in air with these types of long flights, certainly more common in older women, people who are heavy, people who are on hormonal treatment like birth control.
Smokers.
So the CDC, always recommends, certainly pregnancy, postpartum, people who smoke, like you mentioned. So the CDC always does recommend that you try to walk as often as possible in the aisles, that certainly if you know that you're at risk for a clotting disorder, maybe take something like a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory or an aspirin before you fly. fly, wear compression stockings
Yes.
when you fly. So as tragic as this is, and we'll never know if this poor young
That's
woman
what's
would
so
have
sad.
died, I think that at least there might be some medical take home, that there are preventive measures you can take, and certainly in an in-flight emergency like this, that they should have diverted, they should have done the right thing.
Unequivocally.
Yeah, but I
Unequivocally.
think that just to know these symptoms, that if someone is short of breath and their heart is racing, not just to dismiss it as a panic attack, but take it quite seriously.
Yeah. No, I mean, just such a difficult situation. Sarah, I want to thank you so much for weighing in on these topics. We really appreciate it. We did reach out to American Airlines, and they gave us the following statement. We were deeply saddened by this event, and our thoughts and prayers continue to go out to Mrs. Oswell's loved ones. We take the safety of our passengers very seriously, and we are looking into the details of the complaint